Chapter 10. Unpleasant Guest. Everything was almost perfect. Keyword is almost. Today is the first event that I've organized for Williams Incorporated. It has been a few weeks since the night Arthur and I had coffee together. I thought that we have made progress in developing our friendship during that night. However, he's back to being his usual serious and cold self. It's sad that I wasn't able to speak to him like that again. Our conversations are now limited to awkward greetings at the hallways and updates on my progress with handling the event. The loud and energetic voice of the host interrupted my thoughts. I've been so busy with constructing scenarios for the evening ahead that I haven't noticed that the first speaker was already done. I tapped one of the workers on the back and signaled him to the next speaker. He nodded in response as he quickly rushed to do his task. I watched the event unfold before me as a small smile formed on my face. This is it. This is what I've been preparing for. The pressure to get everything right was overwhelming until the point that I started to feel lightheaded. I fell onto one of the plastic seats that was backstage to take a break. I checked the messages sent to me throughout the night along with the current list of attendees. Like rain on a window, I started drumming my fingers relentlessly against the side of the chair. Each click of the French-polished nails on the table echoed the tumultuous thudding of my heartbeat. My face that was rigid with tension belied my youthfulness, probably aging me a decade in the past few hours. My eyes widened in shock as I felt my heart skip a beat when I saw his face. He actually came. I quickly sat up and ran to the edge of the backstage to take a good look at the guests that were coming in from the main entrance. I stared in pure terror as I watched him greet the other guests that he knew. A wave of memories from the last time I encountered him washed over me, making me dizzy. I put my hand over my mouth in shock. I could hear my heart hammering inside my chest as it echoed in my already throbbing head. What am I going to do? Panic filled my veins as I grasped my chest. My heart raced faster as my chest tightened. It felt as if the center of my head, right behind my nasal cavity, was being pulled. A sound roared through me as my knees buckled. My thoughts were cut short when I felt someone's hand on my shoulder. I slowly turned to look at the owner of the hand to see Arthur. Are you okay? He had a concerned look on his face as he examined me intently. I shook my head, trying to snap myself out of the trance that I was in. I forced a closed-mouthed smile. I'm fine. I'm just feeling a little lightheaded. He furrowed his eyebrows. He could probably see through my lie. He pursed his lips into a thin line. Go freshen up. Drink water, go to the bathroom, or sit down. You don't look so well, he said. His voice was laced with worry. I nodded in response as I started to feel uncomfortable with my dry mouth and the lump in my throat. He's right. Don't pressure yourself too much, okay? Take a break. Thank you, I uttered softly as I turned around and walked to the washroom. I tried taking deep breaths to calm myself down, but everything around me was just so overwhelming. I clenched my fists tightly until my nails dug into the palm of my hand, but I barely noticed until I started to feel it sting with pain. The only thing I was really aware of was the sound of my heart throbbing against my chest. It's only when I look into the mirror of the washroom that I've become aware that I've been biting my lip so badly that it's starting to bleed. I groaned in frustration as I got a tissue to gently wipe my lips. I set my bag on the counter to search for my lipstick and lip liner to try and cover the wound. Sandra! I jumped in surprise, dropping my lipstick by accident. I quickly picked it up afterwards, cursing at my stupidity. I examined the lipstick first to make sure that I didn't break it before I snapped my head towards the source of the voice. Charlotte looked at me with a worried expression on her face. What happened? Worry and confusion was written all over my face as I stood up and stuffed my lipstick in my bag. I don't know what exactly, but something happened at the lights room. My eyes widened in surprise as I quickly swung my bag over my shoulder. Thanks for informing me, I said curtly as I rushed outside of the washroom. I walked quickly towards the lights room with my bag clenched tightly to my chest. There were too many important people and breakable items around me, and I definitely did not want to risk hitting any of them. My unbreaking gaze to the doors room kept me from noticing the person walking directly towards me. Without breaking his stride, his shoulder hit me. I lost my balance and stumbled a little bit backwards. I turned to look at the person who hit me. I stood there paralyzed in shock as I stared at him. My brain couldn't process everything that's happening. As if my brain short-circuited and needed to be rebooted. Around me, everything was in fast forward while I was motionless in the middle of it all. Why now of all times? I quickly snapped out of the trance that I was in, and immediately turned my back to hide before he could even realize that it was me. I didn't want him to see me at all. I'm afraid that he would spread rumors about me and ruin my chances of ever working in the entertainment industry again. I have to go as soon as possible. I was about to walk away until I heard him call my attention, stopping me mid-step. "Hey you," he called. His voice was laced with annoyance. I was suddenly paralyzed by nervousness and fear as my heart rate quickened, and my breathing became more rapid and shallow. What am I going to do? Watch where you're going. It was then I heard his footsteps coming closer and closer. Panic started to fill my veins as adrenaline started to rush inside my body. "Sorry, sir." I increased the pitch of my voice in an attempt to disguise it as I quickly walked away from him. The click and clack of my heels echoed in my head as I walked so fast. I was practically running. I took the long cut to go to the lights room as I tried to the best of my ability to make sure that he doesn't recognize me. I huffed out in frustration, thinking that out of all the people in the party I had to bump into him. I gently wiped the sweat that formed on my forehead. While making my way to the lights room, I emptied my head with thoughts about what happened earlier. I needed to focus on the party itself, not on him. I kept repeating these words over and over again, as if to convince me to forget about what happened, but my thoughts were cut by the awful smell coming from the room. I frowned as I got closer to the door because the odor was becoming much stronger. As I opened it, a wave of horror rushed my body as I got scared of the scene unfolding in front of me. Is this going to be my first and last event in Williams Incorporated? Chapter 11. Too close for comfort. I didn't know what to expect when I entered the room. I took a heavy breath before opening the door. As soon as I reached for the handle, it flung open and revealed an electrician on the other side. I stepped aside to make room for him to come out. What was he doing in there? "Joe!" I yelled out loud, searching for him in the room. My eyes scanned the room to see if there was anything out of the ordinary. I can still smell a faint burning smell inside, but I can't put my finger on where it's located. "Hey Sandra, what is it?" Joe jogged up to me. I gave him a perplexed look. He seemed fine compared to what I was expecting. He gave me a sheepish smile as he waited for my answer. "Well, Charlotte told me there was something in the lights room. She looked very worried and I thought it might be that bad." I explained to him, making me turn around to check the room again. "Also, where is that burnt smell coming from?" I added, still getting a whiff of that putrid odor. "Oh, that. I'm sorry, it's just that one of the bulbs here short-circuited and exploded." I gasped in surprise after he finished telling me what happened. I feel like all the blood from my face disappeared and a cold sweat was trickling down from my forehead. Oh my God. That could have led to a fire. I pointed out as my heartbeat quickened and my palms started sweating with nervousness. "Where is the light bulb now?" I hurriedly asked him to show me which is it that could have caused massive damage to the property. "Sandra, it's okay now. I already had it under control. I already called the electrician to replace the light bulb," he assured me as he patted my back to calm me down. I sighed in relief to hear that everything has already been taken care of, but I still felt a pang of guilt as I hadn't been able to supervise everything which led to this unfortunate event. "I'm sorry." I looked down, unable to look at Joe, who might have been mad at me because of what happened. I can't shake off this uneasy feeling that I have. It's my fault. Being so distracted by Kevin made me lose track of my tasks for this event. "It's okay. As long as nobody's hurt." He tried to cheer me up by gripping my shoulder. "I'll take care of everything here, you go out there." He nudged me a bit, making me exhale heavily. As I walked back to the event hall, I scanned the room to check the program and the guests. Everything seems to be running smoothly. It was then Kevin caught my eye. My heart sank in the pit of my stomach as I watched him laugh with his friends. Even though I know that he's probably not talking about me, it felt like he was laughing at me. I clenched my teeth as I balled my hands into tight fists. I grimaced at the sound of his laughter. I hated how his eyes lit up with happiness and amusement, despite the things he has done to me and several other girls. His lack of remorse repulsed me, and his ability to get away with such inappropriate actions made me worry for the other naive and desperate girls like me before. I let out a deep sigh as my eyes fell to the ground. I guess this is just the reality of things that people like me have to deal with. Okay, now for our final speaker. The voice of the host interrupted my thoughts. I glanced up to see the speaker walking up the stage. I took a deep breath as I ran a hand through my hair. The show must go on. Thank God not much has happened until the program ended. I looked around the room as the staff was cleaning up the events place to see where I can help. I saw one staff member trying to arrange the chairs in place, so I also did the same. As I was trying to fix back the seats, my eyes met with Arthur as he was walking towards me. I felt my heart skip a beat as he flashed his handsome smile. "You did great today." He patted my shoulder as he approached me. "Everything went smoothly, good job," he complimented, making me look down shyly as I remember what happened in the lights room. "Thank you, Mr. Williams." I meekly replied as a blush escaped my cheeks. Please call me Arthur instead when it's just us two, he said. His tone was playful and kind. His grin widened, making my heart flutter with joy. Thank you, Arthur, I repeated awkwardly, receiving a satisfied look from him. I returned back to my tasks and was shocked to see him helping me. It's okay, I can do this on my own, I told him, feeling embarrassed that my boss is helping me do my job. No, it's fine. I also help out during the cleanup. He spoke nonchalantly, still focused on arranging the chairs. I just stood there and gaped at him, amazed that even though he's already at the top, he still managed to do these small insignificant things. It made my heart swell at his actions. Realizing that I was just gawking at him, he turned to me and arched an eyebrow at me. Miss Bailey, these chairs are not gonna organize themselves, he stated sternly, making me jerk my head and quickly return to my tasks. He just laughed before continuing. If you're going to let me call you Arthur, then you should call me Sandra too, I stated matter-of-factly as I carried 3 chairs that were stacked on top of each other and placed them to the side. Okay then, Sandra, he said cheekily. A shiver ran down my spine once I heard him say my name like that again. A wave of memories washed over me as I recalled the moment we spent together that night. I bit my lower lip, trying to suppress the smile that was threatening to form as I cheerfully continued with my work. So what brought you here? I asked, trying to make small talks in between our work. He shifted his attention to me after he's done with his last chair. Well, I just wanted to congratulate you on a job well done. He looked at me sincerely. Besides, I heard from Charlotte what happened in the lights room earlier, he added seriously, staring deeply into my eyes. I shivered at his intense look. It was as if he was looking into my soul. I couldn't quite decipher what his eyes told me. Was he mad at me because of what happened? I'm sorry about that, Arthur. I swear I'll do better next time. Looking down at my hands, feeling ashamed that I let something like that possibly ruin this event. It's good that nothing bad happened to you. His voice was calm, making me glance into his eyes. I saw them full of worry, making me feel happy that he thought about my welfare. I held his gaze for a long time, feeling as if the time stopped. We just stood there for a while, feeling the heavy tension between us. It seemed like his face was inching close to mine. I stifled a gasp, feeling my heart about to explode from the nervousness. Feeling his hot breath looming over my lips, I closed my eyes anticipating his next move. Sandra, come here, I heard Joe called out to me from afar, making me open my eyes abruptly and pull away from him. I saw him move back and busied himself checking the chairs as if he was doing that the whole time. I felt my face hot from our almost kiss. I checked my appearance on my phone to see that I was red as a tomato. I immediately fanned myself while walking towards Joe to even out the color of my face before reaching him. Are you good? You look flustered. Did Mr. Williams scold you? He asked consecutively, making me feel overwhelmed. Not really, I answered timidly, still thinking about what happened. I looked back at him to see what he was doing, but only to see his back retreating away. What would have happened if Joe didn't call out to me? Would he really kiss? Or was he just teasing me? All these questions are running in my head, making me a bit dizzy. A thought suddenly popped into my head, making me dread going to work tomorrow. How would I be able to face him after our little moment earlier? Then it dawned on me, will I still have a job tomorrow?
Chapter 12, déjà vu.
Waking up is probably one of the hardest things ever, especially when dreams are much better than reality. That's what I'm kind of feeling now as I am faced again with a stack of papers that are waiting for me to finish. The last event ended just a few days ago, and now I'm starting to prepare for a new one. Even though my last event wasn't a dream, it felt like one. Despite the overwhelming stress that I was in, I am glad that the event was an overall success. I couldn't help but become disappointed as the high from the event started to wear off. It's crazy how just a few days ago I was surrounded by important people from the entertainment industry, luxurious items that decorated the room, and busy employees running around the event. Now I'm back at my desk in front of my desktop computer with my torn notebook lying open on my left side, and a stack of papers sitting under a turtle-shaped paperweight at my right. A smile crept to my lips as I suddenly remembered the moment Arthur and I spent together after the event. My heart fluttered at the thought of him being close to me as I could feel the heat growing in my cheeks. I propped my elbows on the table and cupped my warm face with both of my hands. I moved my head discreetly to the side as I tried to get a good look at him. My eyes furrowed in confusion when I realized that he's no longer in his office. Where is he? Looking for someone? A familiar voice teased softly. I snapped my head towards the source of the voice as my eyes widened in shock. Arthur suppressed a smile. He could probably tell from the blush on my face that I was caught in the act. I got you coffee to make it up for the last time. He smiled apologetically as he handed me a warm cup of coffee. My heart leaped up for joy as I felt a surge of happiness. He has been kind to me lately. I'm glad that he's slowly opening up. I grinned widely at him as I smelled the aroma of the coffee. Thank you, I said genuinely as I moved the cup to my lips and took a sip. The coffee has a crisp, bright flavor, with subtle hints of citrus and rich chocolates. I let out a satisfied hum. It's really great. Where's it from? It's a secret, he said cheekily with a wink as he sat down at the edge of the desk next to me. I furrowed my eyebrows at him and he chuckled at my reaction in amusement. Anyway, how are you doing so far with work? I set down the cup as I held my chin, pretending to be deep in thought. I'm fine, I guess. I have a lot of work, I said, gesturing to the stack of papers on my desk. But I don't mind, I quickly added after. It was then it hit me like a brick. Wait, I said, slowly dragging each letter as I looked at him suspiciously. Why are you asking me? Am I in trouble? I asked nervously as panic started to rise. Memories of the small fire that occurred last event started to flash before my eyes. Relax, he said calmly as he placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. You're doing fine, I promise. Phew, I thought I was gonna get fired. I sighed in relief, wiping an invisible sweat on my forehead. My dramatic gesture made him roar with laughter, making the both of us gasping for air. It's been a while since I had so much fun, he voiced out after we recollected ourselves. His eyes looked sad as he said this. It made my heart clench with sadness seeing his heartbreaking expression. I wanted to hug him tightly but I held it in. How come? I lightly touched his arm trying to comfort him. He let out a long and tired sigh. I'm just not happy with my work anymore, he answered truthfully, which had me taken aback by his reply. He's one of the most successful CEOs today, running a successful multinational company. No one would get why he would be unhappy. He's handsome too. He can literally get whatever he wants and yet, he doesn't take that to his advantage. Instead of just bombarding him with questions, I just silently sat there waiting for him to continue. As if he read my mind, he continued talking. You might think that just because I'm running a huge company, it would automatically make me happy. At first it did, but now I don't think so, he added, tilting my head to the side, not quite following what he was saying. What do you mean? I pried more for him to elaborate. It's just that nowadays the entertainment industry seems so shallow. The trend tends to focus more on looks rather than talent. He responded seriously. I nodded as I understood what he was trying to say. I went into this industry thinking that it was the other way around. I'm naive for ever thinking that. You're right. I also noticed that too. His eyes sparked with excitement as he heard me say this. As a makeup and hair stylist, they often voice out their concerns to me from time to time. He nodded in response as he let out a dry laugh. It's ridiculous, honestly. I wanted to host these events and award shows to bring people together and show real talent to the world. He tilted his head and looked up at the ceiling. I mean, I do bring people together, but everything is just so shallow and... He cut himself short as he glanced at me. I'm sorry for ranting like this all of a sudden. His eyes fell sadly to the ground as he ran a hand through his dark hair. I am not usually like this, don't worry. I just needed to let it out. It's okay, I said softly as I placed a reassuring hand on his knee. As our eyes met, I felt a blush creep to my cheeks. There was a glint in his eye that I couldn't decipher as they probed deep into my soul. It made me conscious about my appearance and nervous that he would be able to recognize me soon enough. I quickly looked away in embarrassment as I bit my lower lip, trying to suppress the smile that was itching to form. Anyway, I just wanted to say that I was here to listen, I said as I awkwardly flashed him a thumbs up. I slapped myself internally. What was that? Thank you, Sandra, he said in relief as he took a deep breath. And it's not just that, he trailed off. He then proceeded to tell all of the things he was dissatisfied with in his career. From his major concerns even down to some minor detail he dislikes, he enumerated each of them frustratedly. It made me listen attentively to what he was saying and added in some of my opinion on certain topics. We were so engrossed in our conversation that we hadn't realized how much time we spent talking. Wow, I thought I was the only one who thought that way, he said as we finished discussing our ideologies with each other. He looked at me in amazement, realizing our similarities. Me too, I replied, smiling at him, admiring his passion and dedication in his field. I felt like I fell for his charms all over again. It made me remember our first meeting at the bar. I never really talked to anyone about this before. he stated shyly as happiness instantly swelled within me. I'm glad that I was the one that you chose to talk to about it, I said genuinely as I gave him a small smile. A quiet contentment spread through the both of us because of the talk we had and the feelings that we shared. We then just fell into silence for a while, enjoying each other's company. Sandra? Arthur broke the silence, making me look at him. His eyes darkened as he moved his head towards me. I felt my skin tingle in anticipation for what he's about to do. It made me feel excited and nervous at the same time. What? I breathed out while I slowly closed my eyes. I sensed his warm breath hover over my lips. This felt like a déjà vu, remembering the day of the big event. Let's just hope it won't disappoint me like last time. Waiting for what felt like forever. His warm lips finally connected with mine. It was a soft, sweet kiss. I missed the feel of his lips. It made me crave for more, but he gently pulled away to look into my eyes. We both stared into each other's eyes. What am I going to do? Chapter 13. Conflicting Feelings. I stared blankly at my ceiling as I laid on my back. Both of my hands were on my chest as I struggled to ignore my heartbeat that drummed within my ears. I feel lost and confused but happy and certain. I'm not used to the combination, it's truly odd. Happiness takes me up and then anxiety immediately brings me back down, so in that combination I could only lie still on my bed to try to understand these feelings. I am like a tangled ball of yarn. The parts that are untangled are still available and usable, while the rest is a mess and useless until it is untied. That mess is a perfect reflection of what I'm feeling. Endless and unyielding. I touched my lips gingerly as I started to recall our kiss. Red leaked into my cheeks as I nervously smiled and bit my lower lip. This was honestly all I thought about last night and this morning. I tried ignoring his calls and texts because I didn't know what to do or say after that. I even called in sick today because I didn't even have the guts to face him. Even though I am ecstatic about the fact that he likes me back, I can't help but feel conflicted, knowing that the reason why I left that night without a trace is because of his work. I groaned loudly as I grabbed a pillow beside me and placed it on my face in frustration. I really like him though, I mumbled sadly. But I can't, I exclaimed as I sat up abruptly, more determined than ever. I suddenly slumped my shoulders as I let out an exasperated sigh. But, I cut myself short, shaking my head to snap me out of the debate that I am having with myself. I need to call Ellie, knowing that hearing another perspective will help make my decision easier. I stretched lazily to grab my phone on the desk beside my bed, and I scowled at the messages I've received. They're mostly work-related, making me annoyed that they're still messaging me even though I am on leave. I ignored all of their messages and tried to search for me in Ellie's chat. I paused mid-scroll when I saw that Arthur texted me as well. From Arthur Williams. I heard you're sick. Are you okay? My thumb hovered over the keyboard as I contemplated on whether or not I should reply. I pursed my lips into a thin line as I decided to exit our chat and call Ellie instead. I put it on speaker as the phone rang. I laid back down again and placed the phone next to my ear. My conflicting thoughts and feelings have really drained the life out of me. I don't even have the energy to hold it up next to my ear. Hello. Relief washed over me as I heard Ellie's voice. What's up? I've got a problem, I said with a sad sigh. It would be much better if Ellie was here in front of me, but it's good that I get to hear her voice. Okay, I'm all ears. It took me a while to explain the entire story. I told her everything that happened since our one-night stand along with my own thoughts and feelings regarding each situation. Ellie remained silent the whole time, listening intently to me. It took me almost 2 hours to tell her everything. I'm grateful that she has made some time to listen to me babble about some boy problem. I think that's the whole story, I said as I tried to remember if I missed any important details. Wow, she muttered. I'm speechless. I arched an eyebrow as I turned to my side to face my phone. All I could see is her profile picture and her name, but it felt comforting to see it. Is that all you've got to say? Honestly, you're missing this amazing opportunity to date the young and hot CEO of one of the biggest companies in the state, she said bluntly. It's a total waste to reject him too. I heard her let out a deep sigh. But if you feel so strongly about it, then I'll support you. I remained silent. I honestly didn't know what to say. Ellie is right. It is a big waste and it's not fair to compare Arthur to Kevin. I breathed out a deep sigh. You're right, I said softly. It was then I suddenly heard something shuffling from the other side of the line, and Ellie whispering to someone else. Sandra, I'm sorry I have to go. I still have work, but please update me on what you've decided, she said apologetically. Before I could even finish my sentence, she hung up. I tossed and turned around in bed. I was torn apart on what I should do with this situation. A part of me thought that I should reject him because it's not right, and another ached to be with him. Thinking deeply made me even more confused. What was I supposed to do? Then I heard the doorbell ring loudly, disrupting my thoughts. I walked over to see who it was. Yes, can I help you? I opened to see a delivery guy holding a basket of flowers in his hand. Is he lost? He must got the wrong apartment number. Are you Miss Sandra Bailey? He asked while looking at the paper in his other hand. I gave him a confused look. If I remember correctly, I didn't order anything. Yes, I answered unsure. But I didn't buy a bucket of flowers. I added awkwardly. He didn't seem fazed with my replies. In fact, he almost looked bored and wanted to get this over with. Please sign here. It's already been paid for, don't worry. He handed me a paper with my name on it and asked me to sign at the bottom. I just did as he ordered, and he left hurriedly without any second thought. I closed the door to check the flowers if there was any note in it. Thankfully, I found a small envelope inside and opened it. Reading the note inside made my heart leap with happiness. To Sandra. I hope you get well soon. Here's some flowers to help you recuperate. I hope you like them. Love, Arthur. I smelled the roses he gave, and it instantly made my heart flutter at his romantic gesture. I decided to go back to my room along with the flowers and set it in the vase. Looking at the set of roses, it made me think back on my current dilemma. What should I do now? I paced back and forth in my room trying to think of my next move. I decided to call him to thank him personally. As I dialed his number, it made me anxious, making my hands sweat. Hey, did you like the flowers? He said as soon as the call connected. I felt my heart skip a beat when I heard his low and husky voice. Hearing his voice made me happy for some reason. Yeah, I did. I just wasn't expecting it. I replied as a smile crept up to my face. Are you available tonight? I just wanted to return the favor. I added shyly as I looked down on my hands. I somehow felt nervous waiting for his answer. Let me check my schedule. I heard some shuffling in his line. It was then I heard him stop abruptly. Wait, aren't you sick? He asked teasingly as my eyes widened in realization. Sandra, you're an idiot. I smacked my forehead with the palm of my head in frustration as I shook my head in disappointment. I can't believe it slipped my mind. I trailed off. I didn't know what to say. What could I even say to my boss that caught me pretending to be sick? Sandra. His voice was stern and serious now, sending shivers down my spine. I'm in trouble. I'm so sorry. I blurted out, scared that I might lose my job. He roared in amusement, making me sigh in relief. I'm just kidding you. It's all right. I used to do that before. He assured teasingly as I let out an awkward laugh. That's not a funny joke, Arthur. Anyway, I'm free tonight, so. Is this a date? The tone of his voice was laced with playfulness and excitement. I could already imagine his smirking expression as a chuckle softly escaped my lips. Maybe, I said mischievously, to which he let out a chortle. That settles it then, it's a date. I didn't miss the confidence in his voice when he declared it as a date. Let's meet at L'Atelier at 8. He added enthusiastically, making me laugh. A wave of mixed emotions instantly washed over me. I was both excited and nervous at the same time. Okay, bye. I trailed off as we both said our goodbyes. As soon as I ended the call, it was then that I only remembered my crisis earlier. I face-bombed myself because I got carried away with the flowers he sent me. I threw myself on my bed and groaned in frustration on my pillow. What am I gonna do now? I let out a deep sigh. I still have time to prepare and think this through. I then searched through my wardrobe to find the perfect dress for tonight. I chose a black spaghetti strap velvet dress and decided to apply natural-looking makeup. While I was applying my makeup, I finally reached a resolution to reject Arthur. I would rather choose my career, as much as it pains me to let Arthur go. I arrived much earlier at the restaurant. Waiting for Arthur made me uneasy, making me fidget in my seat. How should I tell him? Would he be disappointed in meeting me tonight? I was drowning myself with anxiety, waiting for him to arrive. It made my heart beat restlessly inside my chest. It was then I saw a familiar figure approaching the table, making me smile nervously. This is it, I need to face the music. Chapter 14, Facing the Music. Sandra, you must be strong. I repeated to myself desperately as I watched him approach me. My body slumped in defeat as my determination started to falter with his every step. From the night I met Arthur, I already knew that there was something special about him. He had this gentleness that made her heart reach out. He listened and spoke to me as if the things I said mattered like I mattered. Every movement he did is loving, understanding, and compassionate. I bit my lower lip, trying to suppress the grin on my face. How could I ever resist that handsome face? He looked so handsome tonight as well. He wore a midnight blue suit with a thin green windowpane pattern. His inner shirt is white, with lavender stripes running up it. The tie is deep purple that is solid and sleek. It perfectly matched the complexion of his skin well along with his ocean-like eyes. I couldn't help but sigh dreamily. To be honest, all it really took was one look and I'm already his. I started to realize that I was staring at him for too long, and so I quickly turned away, masking the embarrassed expression that took over my face. "Hey there, beautiful," he greeted as he sat down in front of me. I slowly turned to look at him to see a genuine grin spread across his face, turning it from handsome to divine. At that moment I felt my body flush warm. I've never liked someone this much before. I felt like a schoolgirl that had her first crush. This thing between us just felt so new, exciting and innocent. I respond timidly. I didn't know what to say anymore. I was so determined to reject Arthur a while ago. I can't believe that my resolution was thrown out of the window the moment he walked through that door. "So what do you want to order?" "I'll pay." He furrowed his brows as he scanned the menu. My hand was about to reach for it as well, but I stopped midway. My hand lightly fell on the menu with a soft thud, making him glance at me. I opened and closed my mouth to speak, but no words came out. I pursed my lips into a thin line. "Sandra, just do it." I trailed off. "Just say that you're going to reject him. It's not that hard." He tilted his head in confusion. "What?" I took a deep breath. "I can do this. I like you too." My voice was barely even a whisper, my cheeks flooding with the color of pure rose. My eyes widened in surprise when I realized what I've just said. I felt my heart sink as everything remained silent, the only sounds being the conversations of other people in the restaurant. Arthur just stared at me in shock, making me feel more uncomfortable as regret started to set in. I covered my face with both hands in embarrassment, unable to handle my own stupidity anymore. Did I misread his actions? "I'm so sorry," I mumbled. "I want to walk out of the restaurant, but I can't seem to move my legs. I wanted to cry so bad because I feel so ashamed." It was then that I felt someone caress my arms to soothe me. I removed my hand from my face slowly to see who it was, only to find out it was Arthur. His look softened when we held each other's gaze. "Don't be sorry," he murmured as he held both my hands. They were very warm and comforting. "I like you, Sandra," he announced, looking seriously into my eyes. Oh my God, he likes me too. Panic started rising in my chest as my heart beat erratically. I couldn't think straight. My hands started sweating, so I pulled my hand away. "What?" I muttered as I stared at him, trying to see if there were any signs of lying in his face. Did I hear it right? Am I just dreaming? Does he really like me? All these thoughts came flooding all at once when I saw no signs of deception in him. "I really like you, Sandra," he said firmly, taking my hand to kiss it gently. "I've been meaning to tell you this for a while now, but I hadn't had the courage to do so," he added sincerely, making my heart well up at his words. I trailed off, not knowing what to say. I opened and closed my mouth as if trying to tell him something, but no words came out. I zoned out as my mind kept repeating his sentence as if it was a broken vinyl record. What should I do now? What happens to us? These thoughts popped out of nowhere, making me feel anxious. "Would you like to be in a relationship with me?" he asked all of a sudden, making me snap my head back to reality. My eyes grew wide in surprise. Did he just say what I thought he said? "Come again," I retorted, just wanting to be sure of what he said. I feel like I'm riding a roller coaster as my emotions shift so quickly. Earlier I was so sure of rejecting him, then I blurted out that I like him, then he confessed that he liked me too. "I'm sorry, I was just overwhelmed," I added apologetically, looking down at the dinner table. I said, "Will you be my girl?" He replied confidently, smiling handsomely. My heart felt like it was going to burst into a million pieces. How can I resist this charming man? "Yes," I nodded in response to his answer, making him beam with happiness. He cupped my face to his hand and gently pulled me towards him. I closed my eyes, waiting for his warm lips to touch into mine. I can feel him smiling as he kissed me sweetly. I managed to pull away gently from him as I breathed in heavily. His kisses always do wonderful things to me. "You're mine now," he whispered softly in my ear and placed one last kiss on my forehead, making the butterflies in my stomach grow wild. "Ditto." I grinned at him. I still can't believe that Arthur, who is my boss and one of the most eligible bachelors in town, is now my boyfriend. It was then that it only dawned on me that he's still my boss. "Wait, you're my boss and I'm your employee. Isn't that unprofessional?" I asked him, making my heart sink again. This was one of the main reasons why I wanted to reject him in the first place. I can't believe I forgot about that most important thing. His eyes turned serious as he trailed off. He looked deep in thought. Let's just keep it a secret for now, he said, making me frown in return. Upon seeing my expression, he held my hand. It's only for a while that we had to keep it private. Only until I thought of a way to get through this. He added quite sadly. I know he also doesn't want to hide our relationship, but I still can't help but feel quite disappointed that we had to keep our relationship hidden for a while. It's okay, I understand. I gently squeezed his hand to show that it's fine with me. I gave him a small smile in which he also returned. We need to set some rules in order for us to not get caught by anyone. I told him seriously, to which he just looked at me in confusion. What? He asked, still puzzled at my idea. For example, no sneaking and making out in the office. I shrugged my shoulders as if it wasn't a big deal. He laughed out loud, drawing other people's attention to us. I bowed apologetically to some of them and turned back to Arthur and shushed him. I'm sorry, it's just way too funny for you to be thinking about that. Of course, I know that is forbidden, this isn't Grey's Anatomy, he said in between chuckles. But for your sake, I'll take note of that. He winked, making my face turn crimson red. I guess that was such a bad example. Who in their right mind would make out in the office, right? Anyway, that's just an example so you have an idea, I uttered, trying to move on from the topic. Do you have any good ideas for our ground rules? I asked, raising my eyebrows at him as if to provoke him to see if he can do better at providing examples. Well, since you asked for it, let me tell you some I had in mind. He smirked as if he was ready to take on my challenge. I just laughed at his remark. This is going to be a long... Chapter 15. My salvation and torment. Maybe my happily ever after does exist. I'm lucky to experience this kind of happiness in my life despite not being able to leave my own version of a glass slipper. Even though we have only been dating for a few weeks now, I still haven't mustered the courage to tell him the truth about that night. Sandra. Arthur's low and husky voice interrupted my thoughts. I turned my head towards the source of the voice to see him grinning widely at me. His smile was one of happiness that was growing, similar to a spring flower that has bloomed. I could see how it came from deep inside to light his eyes and spread to every part of him. The energy that he radiated was just so pure and genuine, that it even had the power to make me feel warm inside. I mumbled dreamily as I squeezed his hand lightly. We were both walking towards my apartment room as I stared at him in awe. I just loved the way he just smiled with more than just his mouth. I could tell from his voice, the choice of his words, and the way he seemed so relaxed and comfortable with me. Everything about him was just beautiful. Are you okay? He asked worriedly as we stood in front of my apartment door. We were facing each other with my hand still in his. He squeezed it back, flashing me a small smile. Every time he smiled at me, all my worried thoughts and stress would fade away. Excitement rushed through my veins. The happiness that flared in his eyes was definitely infectious because it began to reflect in mine too. I'm fine. I responded genuinely. Thank you for tonight. I'm glad you have fun. He gently cupped my face and leaned in to kiss me on the forehead. I closed my eyes, savoring the warmth of his touch. His hand then drifted to my hip. It settled there for a brief moment before pulling me closer. I inhaled sharply. I was now against his warm chest that was chiseled to perfection. Must he be so perfect? My breathing quickened as he began nuzzling my neck with delicate kisses. So faint they were almost like whispers. I urged myself to push away, knowing that it's late, but I couldn't. My body has now surrendered to his touch as his smell took over my senses. His head was angled slightly to the left as his lips approached mine. My lips parted in anticipation as our breaths mingled. My heart fluttered inside my chest. When he kissed me, my brain lit on fire and the warmth spread through my entire body. His kiss was addictive. I couldn't bear not to be with him, and I sometimes could barely breathe when he was around. His kisses were my salvation and my torment. Within just such a short period of time, he has become the half that made me whole. He suddenly pulled away, smirking at me in amusement. Good night, he said teasingly. Rest well, Sandra. He was about to turn around and leave, but I grabbed the end of his coat, stopping him in his tracks. He turned to look at me. Confusion was written all over his face. What's up? I didn't know what took over me at that moment. It was like I was possessed with lust and desire for him. All I cared about was being in his arms right now. Want to go inside? I asked, gesturing him to my apartment. He hesitated at first, looking at me to see if it was really all right to do so. I opened it for the both of us and stepped aside for him to enter first. As he walked inside, I noticed him surveying my apartment. He went over to one of the picture frames on the wall. It was a picture of my family. You look just like your mother. He voiced out as he admired my family portrait. But you're more beautiful than her. He whispered as he turned to look at me and winked. This sent a tingling sensation down my spine. He pulled back and caressed my face with his right hand, then he pushed back a strand of hair. His hand slowly traveled down my arms to settle down at my waist. This gesture made me shudder with excitement. I leaned onto him, inching my face closer to his. His other hand settled at the back of my head that pulled me close to him. His kiss was hot and needy. His hands roamed all over my body, feeling every inch of skin. We started moving towards the couch without breaking the kiss, and we laid sloppily on it. He broke away to leave a warm kiss on my neck, while his hands moved downward, sliding my dress up. A moan escaped my lips as I felt his hand squeeze my thighs. I trailed off and arched my back and leaned to the side to provide more space for him to leave kisses on my neck. The sensation felt exhilarating. I could easily get lost in his touch. Arthur. I moaned his name breathlessly, making him groan against my skin. We were kissing each other torridly until we both heard the sound of my phone ringing. Arthur was the first to break away, and checked the surroundings to see where the sound was coming from. I got it. I walked up to where my phone was located to answer it. Arthur followed me and hugged me from behind. Hello, who's this? I said to the other line, to which Arthur kissed my ear softly. I wanted to release a moan but held it in and turned around to gently push him away. He chuckled and planted a delicate kiss on my forehead before going back to the couch. Hey girl. Are you busy tonight? Let's hang out. I heard Ellie's excited voice on the other line. I'm kind of in the middle of something. I told her as Arthur cleared his throat loud enough to be heard on the other line. Oh, who is that? Is that who I think it is? She asked teasingly, making me feel shy. Yes, and I need to go. I hurriedly babbled and heard a faint laugh as I hung up the phone. I went back to plop down next to a busy Arthur. Who is that? He inquired as he finished texting on his phone. It's just my friend Ellie. I told him nonchalantly. She just wanted to hang out tonight. I added, to which I saw him furrow his eyebrows. It seemed like he zoned out for a bit and I cupped his face to get his attention. What's the matter? I asked worriedly. Do you remember the girl I told you about before, Sandy? If I remembered correctly, she mentioned her friend's name is also Ellie. He answered with a still confused expression on his face. Crap. I totally forgot that we both searched for her that night. Is he connecting the dots? I need to act calm and think of an excuse. Well, Ellie is a pretty common name, don't you think? I shrugged, trying to sound nonchalant. It seemed like he wasn't convinced as his face was still frowning, which made me anxious. My hands started sweating as I tried to keep my cool. Yeah, maybe. His voice was still unsure but just decided to drop the topic. I cleared my throat, trying to change the subject. I propped myself up and sat properly. And why do you talk about her all the time? I asked, pretending to be annoyed as I crossed my arms in front of my chest and rolled my eyes. He trailed off, not knowing what to say. I pursed my lips to a thin line as I struggled to stop the smile that was itching to form on my face. Nice save, Sandra. It seemed earlier you were quite busy on your phone. I uttered to divert the topic. Maybe I should use this as an excuse to send him home before he fully connects the dots. Maybe you need to go now. I added, to which he pulled me closer. I already resolved that matter. We still have that unfinished business that we need to take care of. He placed light kisses on my cheeks. It took me lots of strength to pull away from his addictive kisses. I knew deep down that it was for the better. I was worried that he'd ask more questions about Ellie and start figuring everything out. No, I think we've had enough for today. Good night, Arthur. I sighed tiredly as I slowly moved away from him. Wait, are you mad? I could hear the panic in his voice as he abruptly sat up. Sandy was just a one-night stand, you know? You're my girlfriend. I felt my heart sink to the pit of my stomach as I frowned at what he said. I know that he was just trying to comfort me, and he meant no harm, but it also hurt to hear him say that about Sandy, even though I know deep down that it's true. I was just a one-night stand. I pressed my lips together, trying my best to keep a neutral expression on. I'm not mad. Are you sure? He asked worriedly as he held my hand. I nodded my head in response as I let out a soft yawn. I'm just tired. I stretched as I stood up. It's really time for you to go. I added casually as I gestured to my wall clock, making him groan. But I cut him off. Arthur, it's late. I stated curtly. As we stood up and made our way to the door, he looked disappointed as his eyes were pleading to take back what I said, but I stood my ground and accompanied him to the door. Sandra. He trailed off pleadingly. Good night, Arthur. I said firmly as I kissed him for the last time tonight before closing the door. I sighed heavily, plopping down on the sofa. That was a close call. I muttered under my breath. I need to be more careful next time. If there's going to be a next time. Chapter 16. A slip of the tongue. Today was just like any other day for me. At the front of the bus sat a kid so small that his yellow bucket hat only peeked over the back of his seat. With every bounce of the suspension, his tiny head would wobble as if it was loosely attached to his neck. He reminded me of the bobbleheads that my father used to collect, and this thought kind of comforted me during my ride. Watching his head disappear and reappear every once in a while became my only form of entertainment as I waited to reach my destination. A small smile crept to my lips as I watched him wipe the condensation from the window with the sleeve of his oversized sweater before pressing his button nose against the glass. I turned to look at mine and drew a smiley face on it, smirking at my silly drawing. I felt my phone vibrate in my hands and I glanced down to see the notification I received. It was from Arthur. From Arthur. I just want to say that I'm sorry. It ended so abruptly, and even though you said that you're not mad, I know that I should still do better. I will stop mentioning about Sandy or any other woman I've been with. You are my girlfriend after all. I'm only supposed to be focused on you. My jaw dropped to the floor as I felt a pang of guilt. Sandra, you idiot. I hit the palm of my hand against my forehead several times in frustration. I quickly typed back my response, immediately wanting to reassure him that everything was fine. To Arthur. Do not say sorry. You did not do anything wrong at all. I just wanted to tell him that everything was my fault. It was my fault for not being able to tell him the truth and by making things more complicated because of that. I quickly checked our messages the moment I felt my phone vibrate again. From Arthur. Are you sure? I let out a sigh of exasperation. I am a terrible human being for making him even feel this way at all. Arthur has been nothing but kind to me this whole time, while I am here lying to him about that night. I paused for a moment. Well, I mean, it's technically not lying if I don't really say anything. I mumbled to myself as I rubbed my chin, thinking deeply. I shook my head, trying to shake away my thoughts. No, Sandra, you need to find a way to fix this. I took a deep breath as I started drafting my message. To Arthur. Want to have coffee after work? Let's meet at the cafe that has terrible coffee and talk. I bit my lower lip as I pressed send hesitantly. I let out a soft sigh as I rested my head against the window of the bus. I sandwiched my phone with my hands on my lap as I waited anxiously for his response. I needed to make it up to him for last night. I feel terrible for keeping his hopes up, and for kicking him out of my apartment so abruptly. I groaned to myself in annoyance. It's getting harder and harder for me to hide the truth from him. From Arthur. All right. See you. I breathed out a sigh of relief as I stuffed my phone inside of my bag. I didn't have a solid plan yet, but I guess I can just wing it. I glanced outside to see Williams Incorporated getting closer and closer. I balled my hands into a tight fist. I can do this. Work just went by in a blur. I finished my tasks quickly so I still have time to prepare for my coffee date with Arthur. I clocked out on time and arrived early at the cafe. As soon as I settled down, I instantly felt anxious. A bunch of questions popped into my head, overwhelming me with it. What should I tell him? Do I tell him the truth? How will he react? Will he handle it? All these questions came flooding in, making me zone out. A small tap on my shoulder brought me back to reality, making me jolt in surprise. Oh, you're here. I put on a fake smile as I enthusiastically greeted Arthur. Good thing he grinned in return as if he didn't notice my act and sat down opposite of me. You're early. Too excited to have some alone time with me? He asked smugly while wiggling his eyebrows, making me burst into laughter. I decided to play along to prolong our talk. Oops, you caught me. I put a hand on my chest and put on an exaggerated expression. We both laughed heartily at our silliness. God, I just wish we could do this all night and forget about talking. As soon as we recollect ourselves, he volunteered to order coffee for the both of us. The moment he left the table, I panicked once again, thinking of what to say to him. Maybe I should just tell him the truth. I'll just tell him I'm Sandy and hope for the best. He had this joyful expression as he returned with 2 coffees in his hand. I immediately felt a pang of guilt as I saw the happy look on his face, because I knew that this would eventually turn into disappointment, sadness, or even anger. I'm sorry. I muttered under my breath before he even reached the table. I gave him a tight-lipped smile as he set down the 2 cups. What did you say? He asked cheerfully, not knowing what's about to happen tonight. Nothing. I retorted as I grabbed my coffee and took a sip. He also did the same, and we fell into silence for a while. He was the first to break the silence as he finished drinking. So, What are we supposed to talk about? He inquired excitedly. This is it. The question I've been dreading to answer has finally come. Well? I started choking on my words. I took a big gulp of my coffee. I felt extremely nervous. My hands started sweating and my heart was beating quickly. I just wanted to apologize for what happened yesterday. I looked down at my hands, feeling ashamed because I kept on stalling. Come on, Sandra, you can do this. Just say you're Sandy and accept the consequences. No, don't be, it's all my fault. I'm sorry for bringing up Sandy. He sincerely looked apologetic. He ran a hand on his hair, a thing he does when he's nervous. You're the only woman for me. I promise to never do that again. He licked his lips as he finished his sentence. His innocence is surely adorable, but it only made me feel even more guilty than I was earlier. Oh no, that's not the reason why I sent you out last night. I placed my hand on top of his as if to comfort him. All of a sudden, his face lit up as if he registered what I said. You're not mad about that? He asked, making me nod in acknowledgement. I was worried that you might get the wrong idea last night. Thankfully you didn't. He sighed in relief as he wiped an imaginary sweat on his forehead. Actually, Arthur, I want to tell you something. I murmured shyly. I can't bear seeing his innocent face, so I just looked down at the table. He didn't say anything, which means he's waiting for me to continue. God, I'm so jittery that I keep fidgeting in my seat. Here goes nothing. I drew out, feeling agitated. What? He spoke abruptly, making me look up at him. As I met his eyes, my mind went blank. I couldn't think about anything. Maybe I was too nervous. You're what? He asked again, making me sit up straight. I'm actually worried about others finding out about us. So I wanted to tell you that I want to quit my job. I talked as quickly as I could. It even felt like I was rapping with how fast I spoke. He just stared at me. His eyes went from being confused to concerned as I suppressed the sudden desire to do a facepalm. Why do I keep doing this? Are you sure about this? I know I said earlier I won't force you to do anything you're uncomfortable with, but I just wanted to know if you have thought this through. He reached his hand out to me to hold both my hands and brought it up to his lips. My insides were screaming as I felt my eye twitch with stress. I can't believe I did it again. It was just like the time that I was supposed to reject him. I simply nodded in response, to which he pried again. What's your plan? I'll just find a job in a TV or film production company. I uttered, quite unsure of myself. After all, I just suddenly thought about this now. He just furrowed his brows at me, unsatisfied with my answer. I've always wanted to become a celebrity makeup and hair stylist. It's been my dream for the longest time. I sighed dreamily as I rested my chin on the palm of my hand. A small smile crept to my lips as I recalled the first time I've used makeup. It was definitely not pretty. I used to be a makeup and hairstylist in KB Studios before I worked in Williams Incorporated. Then why did you end up working as an events coordinator? He asked curiously as he tilted his head to the side in confusion. A wave of unwanted memories washed over me. I inhaled sharply as I balled my hands into tight fists. I guess I just wanted to try something new, I said nonchalantly with a shrug, desperately trying to mask the sad expression on my face. But makeup and hair has always been my passion. Well, if that's the case, then let me help you. He spoke as he reached his pockets to pull out his phone. I immediately stood up and held his arm to stop him. No, don't. He just stared at me and stopped his actions. I don't want to get into a company because of connections, I muttered softly as I sat back down. I got into this mess, and I have to find a way to get out of it. I looked at him to see his expression softened. I understand. He voiced out, but still reached out his pocket to pull out his wallet. I tilted my head to the side, confused as to why he suddenly took his wallet out. He soon withdrew a bunch of calling cards. These people can help you land a job in those fields you said earlier, he told me as he handed me a couple of calling cards. As I received the cards, I checked each of one of them. After scanning everything, I put the cards inside my bag and thanked Arthur. I can't believe I'm going to try to pursue my dream again. And it was all just because of a slip of the tongue. Chapter 17, Trying Again. What do you think? I asked Ellie as I stared at her expectantly for her thoughts about the situation. I told her about everything that happened so far. Arthur almost finding out the truth about that night and me deciding to pursue my dream to work as a celebrity hair and makeup artist again. As always, Ellie was here to give me the best advice. Despite being very busy herself, she tried to make time to listen to my problems and to cheer me up. I really think you should tell him the truth, she said honestly as she played with the small stuffed toy that I had on my bed. I opened my mouth to speak, but she immediately cut me short before I could even respond. But I know that you think that you shouldn't, and I understand that. I let out a deep sigh as I let my head fall on the pillow behind me with a soft thud. I'm an idiot, I muttered bitterly. Yeah, you are. But why are you so scared of telling him the truth? I know it's hard, but as they say, the truth will always find a way to come out. She cried, making me even more anxious than I already was. She's right, I know that eventually he will know everything, but not right now. Everything is going smoothly and I don't want to ruin that. You know what happened last time, right? Those terrible rumors that were spread about me. I'm afraid that those fake rumors will reach him. I just don't want him to think negatively of me. I babbled as I recall those dark times. He might remember Sandy, who was a one-night stand, and believe those rumors that I'm a slut, a whore. I trailed off sadly as my eyes fell to the floor. Ellie just looked at me sadly as she placed her hand on top of mine. I understand, but as your friend I'm telling you that it's much better if the truth came from you rather than Arthur finding it out on his own. Her soft, empathetic voice made me feel more guilty for trying to choose to hide it, even when I had the chance to tell him. I don't know. Ever since what happened with Kevin, I felt like I lost all my courage in myself. I sighed sadly as tears are starting to well up in my eyes. Hey, I'm not forcing you to do anything right now. At the end of the day, it's your call whether or not you tell him, okay? She turned to hug me. Her embrace made me feel comfortable and safe. I really needed this. I'm sure he'd understand too if ever he found out. I hope he doesn't, I exclaimed in frustration as I hugged my pillow tightly to my chest and shifted my body to look at her. I already like how everything is. I hope so too, she said with a shrug. Anyway, enough about him. She waved the air as if she was shooing the topic away. I want to know more about your decision to try again. Her voice was laced with excitement and curiosity as her face suddenly lit up. Words cannot describe how proud I am, she said genuinely as she grinned at me widely. My mood lightened at her words as she looked at me with so much pride and joy. Thank you, Ellie, I said, flashing her a closed-mouthed smile. Arthur actually gave me the calling cards of people that I can contact about this. I sat up and swung my feet out of my bed and into my fluffy slippers. I dragged my feet across the room and grabbed my bag to find my wallet. Which companies did he suggest? She asked curiously as I pulled out the cards that I kept in my wallet. I furrowed my eyebrows as I started reading each one. LLL Corporation, McGuigan Incorporated, Athena Studios, Rocket Pictures. I mumbled to myself as I flipped through each one. I'm amazed that Arthur personally knows the CEOs of these companies, as they are one of the well-known TV and film industries in the country. What are you waiting for? Message them, Ellie said impatiently as she quickly grabbed my laptop. I opened my laptop and proceeded to type an email to each of them. With each message I sent, I felt myself get excited. This is now my chance to pursue my dreams. I hope I get into one of them. Done. I told no one in particular, looking around the room to only find myself inside. I closed my laptop and walked out. I saw Ellie on the couch watching TV. I plopped down next to her. What are you watching? I asked while reaching for the remote on the coffee table. Oh, nothing in particular. I was just scrolling through the channels. She shrugged and still focused on the program. Are you done? She turned to me. I nodded in response. We just fell silent as we both scanned through the cable to find a good program to watch. I felt myself getting sleepy as time went by, making me yawn. There's nothing good to watch today. Ellie turned off the TV and stood up to stretch. Let's just eat dinner outside. I feel so bored, she added as she turned to me. Well, I don't have anything to do for tonight, might as well go with her. All right. I stood up and went to my room to put on makeup and grab a coat. As I went outside, I saw Ellie doing her final touches on her makeup and hair. Let's go. I snatched the keys from the cabinet and walked out with her. So where do you want to eat? Ellie asked as we made our way downstairs. She looked much livelier now than when we were watching TV. You decide, I replied, shrugging my shoulders. My mind drifted away to my relationship with Arthur. I know I already talked to Ellie about it earlier, but I still haven't decided yet what to do. He has done nothing but showed kindness and care for me these couple of months, and I repay these by deceiving him. I scoffed at my actions as I shook my head in disappointment. I'm such a horrible person. How about Chinese? I faintly heard Ellie speak, making me snap my head to her. I didn't realize I was so deep in thought and drowned out her voice. Yeah, Chinese sounds good, I uttered as I put on a thin-lipped smile. Eating delicious food might make me temporarily forget about my dilemma. We just walked to the restaurant near my apartment. As we settled down, Ellie began ordering for the both of us. Being friends for a long time made her memorize my taste in food. Thank you. I told her as soon as the server left. For what? She asked as confusion was visible on her face. I just grinned at her. For everything, for earlier and for tonight. Her bewildered expression quickly turned into an understanding one. Of course. I got your back. She winked, making both of us laugh. We chit-chatted about anything as we waited for our order. It eased the tension I had earlier. I'll worry about my problem tomorrow, but for now, I'll just let myself enjoy Ellie's company. Chapter 18. Awkward interactions and misunderstandings. Board meeting is definitely the right name for this. Bored. It felt like there were invisible jail bars present. These bars held me captive along with 15 others, knowing that leaving meant an invite to a bleak winter of unemployment. This room has reached an all-time level of boredom 30 minutes ago. Charlotte along with other people are reporting about the event a few months ago. They are discussing their findings and emphasizing certain points that we need to repeat again for this next event. It was really interesting at first, considering that I was the one who led the event. However, it really started to drag and become repetitive. Being able to find meaning in this report would be as difficult as discovering sufficient nutrition in soda. It has gotten that bad. Meanwhile, I have gotten 5 urgent calls to return. Every one of them was from sponsors and speakers for the upcoming event. Across the boardroom table, I could see the agony in Matthew's eyes. My lips twitched as I tried to suppress the smile that was threatening to form. It was comforting to know that someone else was feeling the same way. We exchanged small and tired nods, acknowledging each other's suffering. Every time I made eye contact with him, it was a reflection of my own urgent need for freedom. Please let us go. My body suddenly perked up as a burst of energy surged through me when I realized that Charlotte was finally concluding. I grabbed my coffee cup and my phone, excited to leave. Oh, and another thing, she trailed off. I didn't bother to listen to what she had to say because I know most of these already. I've studied all of these beforehand in preparation for the next event that I needed to handle. What are your thoughts about it, Ms. Bailey? Charlotte's voice interrupted my thoughts. My eyes widened in panic as I rigidly turned to look at her. Can you please repeat that? I'm sorry, I wasn't able to hear the question, I said sheepishly as I flashed her an apologetic smile. She pursed her lips into a thin line as she gestured to the PowerPoint. Do you think that this would be enough? I quickly scanned the PowerPoint, vaguely remembering this from the documents I've read. It's regarding the budget. I bit my lower lip as I decided to take the risk. Yes, I think it would be sufficient enough. I tried to say this with confidence, but the expression on my face probably said otherwise. Charlotte nodded at me, then looked at everyone else. Expecting this kind of budget for this big of an event is not sufficient enough actually, Charlotte announced coldly as I felt my heart sink to the pit of my stomach. Sandra, you're an idiot. If you listened well to my reports, VIP guests are requesting special treatment and thus this budget, according to my calculations, is not enough. However, it would be nice to reach a total that is lower than this. Charlotte glanced at me and I nodded timidly, acknowledging what she said. I bit my lower lip as I felt my cheeks flush with embarrassment. She said a few other things before she finally dismissed all of us. I let out a deep sigh of relief that the meeting is over, but the pit in my stomach still never left. I feel so embarrassed for what happened a while ago, and I have no one to blame but myself because I didn't listen the whole time or read the reports well enough. It's crazy that just when I thought I knew it enough, Charlotte managed to prove me wrong immediately after. I ran a hand through my hair in frustration as I dragged my feet across the floor towards my desk. My eyes were locked on the floor as I was too embarrassed to look at the other people who attended the meeting a while ago. I'm really such an idiot. I felt someone bump my shoulder lightly, making me turn to look at that person. My eyes grew wide when I realized that it was Arthur. There were several papers in his hand as well, making me realize that he probably wasn't looking at where he was going as well. Hello, sir. I greeted, bowing my head politely. He nodded in response before he continued walking to his room. Ever since we had our talk at the cafe, things have been a bit awkward between us. He clearly feels bad about the relationship we're having, knowing that he's my boss and I am just his employee. I understand that he's trying to respect my boundaries by distancing himself from me. I breathed out an exasperated sigh. We haven't been able to talk much as well because we're both busy with this event. Handling this event and applying for a new job has taken most of my time and I feel bad, knowing that he probably thinks I'm distancing myself from him as well. I decided to take a mental note to talk to him later, and hopefully clear up any misunderstandings. As I settled down on my desk, I set aside thoughts about Arthur and focused on the upcoming gala. I started by going through the files again as I don't want a repeat of what just happened in the meeting room earlier. I carefully scanned all of the documents and took note of the important details. I swore to myself that what happened a while ago will be the last. After I finished working on the gala reports, I decided to take a short break and text Arthur, hoping to clear up our misunderstanding. To Arthur. Are you free after work? Let's grab some coffee and talk. I miss you. After sending the text message, I glanced a peek at his office. I saw him smile as he read his phone and turned to my direction. We held each other's gaze. His smile turned into regret after a brief moment, then he tore away his gaze to type something on his phone. A few seconds after my phone notified me that I received a message, it was from him. As I read his message, I began to understand why he had such a sad look on his face. From Arthur. I'm sorry I can't. I still have a lot of work piled up. I miss you too. I'll make it up to you after the gala. Closing my phone, I took a peek again at his office, but it seemed like he went back to work again as I saw him typing away on his computer. Is he trying to ignore me? What should I do? Should I text him again? Feeling quite dejected, I just fixed my desk instead to prepare to head home. After arranging everything, my phone pinged to signify another message I received. Maybe he changed his mind, I thought to myself. From LLL Corp. Greetings, Ms. Bailey. This is Olivia from LLL Corp informing you that we have received the email you sent yesterday. We would like to discuss a possible job offer for you tomorrow at 10 a.m. We look forward to seeing you in our office tomorrow. My mouth fell open in shock as I read each word in the text. I wanted to jump in glee, but I held it in since I'm still at work. This is it. My dream is finally within reach. I got out of work in such high spirits. I can't wait for Chapter 19, Hope for the Future. Am I really making the right decision? My head started to fill with thoughts of self-doubt and worry. I didn't believe in my own capabilities, and in the first place, I'm not even sure if I'm making the right decision. My job in Williams Incorporated was perfectly fine. Despite the intense workload, I was still being paid generously, and I have gotten a lot of opportunities as well. I pursed my lip into a thin line, knowing that being an events coordinator really isn't my passion in the first place. I'm a bit grateful that this Arthur issue has somewhat pushed me to try pursuing my dream as a makeup and hairstylist again. My mouth formed a rigid grimace as nervousness started to consume me. With arms folded tightly across my chest, I tapped my foot nervously while staring out the window in a desperate attempt to mask what I'm feeling right now. I let out a dreadful sigh as I gazed at the scenery. This fitfully sunny morning would either see the start of something new for me or my dreams being crushed again. Miss Sandra Bailey? An unfamiliar voice called for me, making me snap my head towards the source of the voice. Ms. Labine is expecting you now. Beads of sweat started to form on my forehead as I squeezed my clammy hands assuringly. It's going to be fine, Sandra. I took a deep breath as I tried to calm my heart pounding inside of my chest. I gently patted my chest as I stood up and walked towards the woman. The door opened directly into her private office. It is a huge room occupying the corner of the building with floor-to-ceiling windows that had an amazing and breathtaking view. Even though it was mostly just the road, a bunch of people walking around, and a few restaurants, there was something about it that made you feel power as you looked over it. Good morning, Ms. Labine. I greeted confidently as I flashed her a small smile. This sudden burst of energy surged through my veins as desperation started to kick in. I really wanted this job. After all, LLL Corporation is one of the biggest entertainment companies in the whole country. She nodded, acknowledging my greeting as she gestured to the seat in front of her desk. Please sit, Ms. Bailey. I definitely want to get to know more about you. I sat in front of her and noticed her desk. The sleek black glass surface of her desk was organized and uncluttered. There were only a handful of things on it as well. A computer, a brown leather notebook, and a framed photograph of a 17-year-old boy. She then pulled out some folders from her drawer. She opened it to reveal my resume and my portfolio. So tell me about yourself, she said as she intertwined her fingers together and placed it on top of my resume. She stared at me expectantly as I swallowed the lump that was beginning to form in my throat from nervousness. I began introducing myself and giving her a summary of my work experience. I told her about the projects I've handled so far, the companies I've worked for, and my key responsibilities I've had in each job. She nodded in response, listening intently to what I had to say as she double-checked and looked at my resume from time to time. Well, let's put your skills to the test, Ms. Labine challenged, making me feel nervous all of a sudden. What is she gonna make me do? I just sat quietly while my hands started to get clammy. She called for her assistant and whispered something to her. When her assistant got out of the room, she abruptly spoke up. You need to come up with a never-been-done-before hair and makeup on one of our employees with the theme sci-fi. I asked my assistant to prepare for your resources and your model, she said coldly, making me even panic in my seat. I haven't prepared anything for this. I was also not aware that they have this kind of test. I'm sorry, Ms. Labine, but I haven't prepared for this test, I told her uncertainly. I heard my voice crack at the last word. What should I do? I tried to breathe heavily to calm myself down. You can do this. You're already here. I know, this is an impromptu test. She shrugged as if this is something she has dealt with before. This is to test if you are able to work under time constraints. Having little to no time to prepare can certainly bring out one's talent and creativity, she added confidently. Her words even made me uneasier. I can overcome this. Instead of dwelling on my fear, I decided to just use this adrenaline rush of fear to fuel my imagination. I kept fidgeting in my seat as I waited for the assistant to come back. Trying to think of something never done before is really hard. This is my make or break it point. I need to impress Ms. Labine with my skills, or else I need to say goodbye to my dream job again. Her assistant came back and informed her that everything was already set. Ms. Labine was the first to stand up and I followed behind her closely. We went to another room in the building. It looked like this is where actors do their hair and makeup before they go to their filming. I looked around to see a number of makeup products on the vanity table. I saw my model sitting in front. She isn't exactly what I pictured her to be. She looked like she's in her late 30s and her complexion isn't as smooth as many known models have. I took a deep breath and encouraged myself that I can do this. You have an hour to transform her. Good luck. Ms. Labine spoke up, then eventually left the room. Thank you, I uttered softly, turning my head back to my model. As she closed the door, I began checking the different products laid on the table. I inspected some of them to see which ones I am going to use on the lady. After picking out all of the things I needed, I delicately applied makeup on my model. She just sat there quietly and let me do her makeup in peace. I applied various types of color on her face as if to portray a more sci-fi look. I blended some colors and contoured some of her facial features to suit the theme of this test. I was able to finish everything with a little minute to spare. Looking at my model's face, I smiled in satisfaction with my design. What do you think? I asked her anxiously, hoping she would also like it. I bit my lip as I nervously waited for her answer. I like it, she answered cheerfully, making me sigh in relief. I'm glad she liked it. Now it's only Ms. Labine's opinion left. My thoughts were interrupted as the door suddenly burst open. Ms. Labine was the one who opened, and behind her were two people who tagged along. One was a man that looked like in his mid-40s and the other one was a woman who seemed like she's in the same age group as me. Miss Bailey, these are Mr. Leong and Ms. Lin. They are part of the Creative Management Committee, and they will help me judge you on your test. Ms. Labine introduced the three of us. As it dawned on me that three people will judge my work, I began to feel uneasy. What if one of them doesn't like it? What if both of them don't like it? These thoughts flooded my head as they evaluated my model. All of their faces were neutral as they saw my model. They sent me to wait outside for the result of their deliberation. I was on edge when I sat down. My heart was pumping so fast and my palms started sweating. I hope all of them liked it, I thought to myself as I bit my lip in anticipation. The door of the room flew open and the two committee members went outside. They asked me to go back inside as Ms. Labine will be the one to give the feedback. I went inside, my fingers crossed, hoping I passed the test. As I got inside, she asked me to take a seat in front of her. Then she began providing her feedback on the makeup. She balanced out the good and bad points, so I don't exactly know where I stand. We still need to talk about the final verdict, Ms. Labine told me truthfully. But to tell you honestly, I liked your work, she added with a wink, making me hopeful for a good result. Thank you so much, I replied, feeling thankful that she was pleased with it. You may go now. We'll contact you as soon as we make our decision. We both stood up and shook hands. As I exited the building, I couldn't help but feel elated because of what Ms. Labine told me. I'm keeping my fingers crossed until I receive their callback. Just the thought of working here immediately brought a smile to my lips. Maybe I did make the right decision.